3 sinister true stories of haunted nights alone, terrifying secrets exposed on rainy evenings. The storm raged outside, twisting the night into a shadowy nightmare. Thunder cracked like a whip, rain lashed against the windows, and every flicker of lightning painted a chilling picture of dread. For Sarah, a 34-year-old single mother, the night wasn't just filled with thunder, it felt like the very air was thickening with unspoken fears. She had barely survived her late shift at the diner, pocketing just enough to keep the lights on and the fridge stocked. As she stepped into the damp, dark, familiar surroundings of their modest bungalow, the unsettling feeling in her gut only deepened. "Mom," came a soft voice from the living room. Sarah's eyes fell on her daughter, Lily, a slender teen of 14, curled up tight on the couch, mesmerized by the flickering glow of the television. Shadows danced like specters on the walls. The rain drummed like a persistent heartbeat, thrumming against the roof in a rhythm that felt more ominous than soothing. Sarah allowed herself a moment of reprieve but sensed an unsettling chill creeping into the room, invading her senses. Turning to the window, she caught a glimpse of their neighbor, Mr. Davis. A kindly face, they said, a retired officer trusted by the neighborhood, yet tonight, he loomed like a haunting figure under the opaque, rain-soaked sky. A gut feeling alerted her, a reminder that instinct often outpaced reason. "Rusty, stop!" Sarah snapped as their loyal dog began pacing nervously, barking at the basement door like it held dark secrets of its own. Sarah's heart pounded. The weight of the air felt heavier when her phone buzzed, slicing through the tension like a knife. A group chat notification pinged from the mothers in the neighborhood. The headlines were unmistakable: disappearances. Families torn apart on rainy nights. Panic raced in her veins as she read through chilling stories that echoed in her mind. Bedtime stories had morphed into nightmares. "Mom, what's wrong?" Lily asked, concern knitting her brows together as they sat in the dim light. "That's silly folklore," Sarah murmured, but their laughter from just minutes ago felt like a fragile memory. The tales of the Watcher haunted the deepest corners of her thoughts. Tonight felt different, more dangerous. Then a heavy thud from the basement caused her blood to run cold. "Stay here," she urged as dread pooled in her stomach. When a second, more profound thud followed, the darkness seemed to yawn wide with ominous possibilities. Their eyes met, layers of fear stitched into the silence. Just as Sarah gathered her courage to disrupt their unease, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into blackness. The storm rumbled loudly outside, as if mocking her fear. When the power surged back on moments later, Rusty stood at the foot of the stairs, for standing on end, barking as if sensing a threat lurking in the shadows. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sweat trickled down Sarah's back as fear wrapped around her like a vice. She glanced back at the window where Mr. Davis's figure hovered menacingly, watching them. Tunes of horror echoed in her mind, the stories whispered about him danced like leaves caught in the storm, those who vanished, leaving puzzles behind. With a shaky breath, she grabbed a flashlight, feeling the cool metal against her clammy hand, knowing she couldn't leave Lily unprotected. The sound of the lock clicking echoed, an invitation or a warning. What dark truth did Mr. Davis hide just beneath the surface? Tremors seized her confidence as they exchanged glances. Could she truly keep her daughter safe from the nightmares waiting just outside their door? The basement door loomed before Sarah like a gaping maw, ready to swallow her whole. She swallowed hard, her heart banging against her ribcage. Rusty's barks echoed in her ears, sharp and frantic, urging her to stay put. But the glimmer of the flashlight was reassuring in her hand, a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. "Mom, don't," Lily whispered, her voice trembling as she clutched the couch cushion. Ignoring her daughter's pleas, Sarah took a step toward the basement door. It loomed larger with every passing heartbeat, as if something terrible waited just beyond its threshold. Another thud resonated from below, a deep and guttural sound that felt like a scream buried in silence. "Just stay here," Sarah commanded, trying to sound more confident than she felt. She turned the handle, the cool metal biting into her palm. The door creaked open, revealing a black void, so impenetrable that she wondered if the darkness had substance, if it could reach out and pull her in. For a moment, she hesitated, steeling herself. Behind her, she heard Lily quivering, the rustle of fabric as she probably clutched her knees. "Mom, please." But fear clawed at Sarah in a different way. Her need to protect her daughter outweighed everything. She took a deep breath, fighting against the instinct to turn and run. She shone the flashlight into the depths of the basement, the beam slicing through the gloom and revealing nothing but the vague shape of the stairs leading down into shadowed corners. "Hello?" she called, her voice wavering. The darkness swallowed her words whole. Silence hung heavy in the air, only the sound of rain drumming on the roof kept her company. With a shaky hand, she moved slowly down the stairs, each creak of wood underfoot echoing like a warning bell. "Stay away from the bottom step." Lily's panicked cry cut through the stillness. Sarah froze. "What do you mean?" "I heard it too. Something's down there." The hairs on the back of her neck prickled, cold with the realization that they weren't alone. She felt her heart rate spike, the rushing sound in her ears drowning out the storm. "Just, let me look." With another tentative step, she listened intently, straining against the sounds of the storm. No thudding now, only the murmur of the rain outside. She caught a glimpse of something in the shadows, a glimmer of movement, unnatural and quick. "Mom!" Lily's voice was a hoarse whisper now, thick with fear. Sarah turned her head sharply, panic surging. "I'm okay," she called back, though each word felt like a lie. The beam of her flashlight strained as she moved further down. It illuminated a clutter of old boxes and forgotten memories piled high. But something shifted deeper into the dark, a shape, long and thin, slithering quietly just out of sight. Instantly, dread filled her stomach like lead. She stepped back, her heart racing as she strove to comprehend what lay before her. The sense of being watched left goosebumps prickling on her skin. "Mom!" Lily's voice bled with urgency. "Get out of there." In that moment, Sarah realized the truth. The house might be haunted, but it was not by memories or unresolved sorrow. It was much more tangible, an insatiable darkness creeping forth, waiting to claim them. "Stay up there, Lily!" she shouted, her voice breaking. Suddenly, the heavy metal door behind her slammed shut, cutting off her light. Darkness swallowed her whole, and a cold, breathy whisper filled the stagnant air. "You shouldn't have come here." The flashlight flickered out, leaving her in pitch black. Fear clawed at her throat as chains rattled in the distance. Who or what was down there with her? As Sarah's mind raced, a horrifying understanding settled over her. The stories she had dismissed as folklore gnawed at her thoughts. The Watcher was real, and tonight, he was far from her imagination. What lay ahead was an unimaginable terror, one that lurked not just in the basement, but also in the heart of someone she thought she knew. What truth was Mr. Davis hiding, and would Sarah uncover it before it was too late? As the bewildering silence stretched around Sarah, confusion twisted into raw terror. The air felt thicker, almost suffocating, as if something was pressing in on her from all sides. The rattling of chains echoed again, this time closer, reverberating through the heavy stillness. Her instincts screamed for her to flee, to run back to the stairs, back to the light and Lily. "Mom!" Lily's voice trembled from above, but how could Sarah respond? The dark was thick like smoke, eerily quiet, and her thoughts raced with unanswered questions. What was that? She wondered, a chill creeping down her spine. Then came a soft sound like shuffling, scuttling feet against the cold concrete floor. Heart pounding, Sarah strived to listen, but her own breath seemed deafening. She felt the flashlight's weight pitiful in her grip, a feeble shield against whatever loomed just beyond sight. "Show yourself," she shouted, her voice cracking under pressure. The bravado felt hollow, shaky. Silence answered, suffocating and absolute. Every nerve in her body tingled, urging her to retreat. She aimed the flashlight down into the abyss, daring to shine it upon the shadows that danced at the edges of her vision. A flicker of movement darted away, sending a wave of icy terror coursing through her. "What do you want?" she demanded, uncertainty creeping in. But there was no reply. Only the rain pounding down on the roof, drowning out her screams. Suddenly, a cough echoed through the dank air, a raspy, wet sound that twisted her gut with dread. It felt human and hideous, as though it had passed through thin lips too long uncared for. It was close. Too close. With a deep shuddering breath, Sarah turned, feeling along the wall behind her. The darkness pressed heavier, as if eager to devour her. A glimmer caught her eye, something shone faintly against the outer wall like a forgotten relic. She edged cautiously toward it, desperation spurring her forward. As she neared, she saw it, a small, tarnished bell tied to a frayed piece of twine, swinging gently, as if someone had just touched it moments before. A chill shot through her. Did it belong to, what? The Watcher? The thought twisted at her stomach. "Mom! You need to get out of there." Lily's voice pierced the air, it was now mixed with a nervous sob. "Lily!" she called back. "Stay close, but I need to look." Just then, the shadows lurched. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Something emerged, a silhouette of blurred intensity, a face obscured by thick darkness, with eyes gleaming like shards of glass. They stared at her, and dread washed over her like ice water. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, the words escaping in a frantic rush. The apparition took a step forward, distorted features shifting in the dim light. "You shouldn't have come here," it breathed, voice raspy and layered like leaves in autumn. Panic surged through Sarah's veins. Clenching the bell tightly, she took an involuntary step back, stumbling against a box. In that instant, it felt as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for a moment to unleash its terror. Then, like the flick of a switch, the basement door creaked open, light flooding in suddenly. But it was different now. Dark shapes coiling behind her in that newfound illumination seemed to pulse, twitching as if alive with malevolence. Sarah hesitated for just a moment, caught between the new light and the old shadows. As the first sliver of hope sparked, her instincts told her to flee. She turned on her heel, racing back to the stairs only to hear the sound of chains clawing across the floor, dragging, relentless. "Run, Mom!" Lily screamed, but where was their salvation? With every ounce of strength, Sarah launched herself towards the opening, but cold fingers, the chill of despair wrapped around her ankle, pulling her down. The whispers rose into a crescendo. Feeling herself being yanked back into the suffocating darkness, she screamed. Would she reach Lily in time? In that harrowing moment, she fell into the clutches of night, unsure if she would ever escape again. Who would be taken? Who controlled the shadows, and who would be forced to pay the price for the truth? Sarah felt her heart thud against her ribcage, urgency twisting her insides as the darkness closed in. That icy grip on her ankle was stronger than she could imagine, relentless, insatiable. With a surge of panic, she jerked her leg, fighting against the unseen entity. But it was like wrestling against a river, and the whispers grew louder, weaving a tapestry of dread around her. "Let go!" she screamed, the word tumbling into the encroaching dark. The chains rattled again, that haunting sound mingling with Lily's cries above. Fear for her daughter propelled her forward, and she kicked wildly, shaking off the cold fingers if only for a moment. The darkness recoiled slightly, and adrenaline fueled her instincts. Using the last of her strength, Sarah crawled toward the stairs. Just as she lunged for the bottom step, she felt a sharp tug at her jacket. It wasn't the chains this time. It was something warm yet revolting. She twisted in horror, directing the beam of the flashlight across the floor and stopping dead in her tracks, her blood turning to ice. A figure knelt there, half-etched in shadows, mouth twitching as if it were laughing silently. It wore a tattered uniform, its face obscured by a mess of dark hair, and where its eyes should have been were just holes deep, black, consuming voids. The edges of its mouth curled upward into an unnatural grin, the ghastly sight glimmering under the flashlight's beam. "Please, no," she stammered, inching back, but the figure lunged, dragging itself closer across the floor, limbs that weren't meant to bend creeping toward her. "Mom!" Lily's voice jolted her again. "Mom, please get out. I'm scared." "No. No. No." The desperate chant spilled from Sarah's lips. She pushed herself up, scrambling up the steps, praying for Lily to be safe above. The doorway felt like a horizon she couldn't reach. Suddenly, rough fingers clawed at her ankle again, pulling her back. The sensation was a cold vice. It tightened painfully, dragging her toward that terror now revealing its true form. Sarah twisted, her thoughts a frantic whirlpool. What was this thing? What did it want? "Get off me!" she screamed, clawing at the step, pushing through the din of chains and whispers that swirled around her, enveloping her in dread. The light flickered strangely, making the shadows dance. Just then, she felt the weight on her leg lessen as the figure seemed to pause, drawn back between the darkness and the remains of the basement light. A new noise cut through the air, a grating, mournful wail that echoed throughout the entire house, reverberating through her bones. It was then that Sarah understood, she was not alone in her terror. This thing was one of many, a guard watching over something worse. She ripped her leg free from the grip, lunging for the door. "Lily!" she shouted, desperately trying to reach her daughter's voice echoing above. "Hold on." The flashlight flickered again, illuminating the mass of shadows swirling in the periphery. She climbed the last steps, her pulse quickening. Outside, the rain unrelentingly poured down, mingling with her tears of fear and desperation. Just as she flung herself through the doorframe, an all-seeing eye glistened through the shadows like mercury, tracking her every move. Sarah's body hurt, but she fought through the pain, stumbling back into the living room, heart pounding in her throat. Where was Lily? She had to find her. Was she safe now? But as she blinked, the room shifted in front of her. The furniture was not quite right. The old couch now leaned at an angle, the walls seemed to sway, bending and twisting. A surge of confusion washed over her. "Mom!" Lily's voice rippled through the air again, clearer now, yet distorted. Sarah's breath hitched painfully in her throat, uncertainty creeping in. "Lily!" She rushed down the hallway, but the house felt alive, pulsating with dread and deceit. Each corner turned revealed only more darkness lurking. Then she halted, stomach twisting. The front door, it stood ajar, revealing a path to the outside. But there, in the doorway stood a figure. One that made her stomach drop. The Watcher. What cruel game were they playing? Would she escape this house if she crossed the threshold? With every heartbeat, Sarah knew she had to make a choice: stay in this nightmare or step into the unknown and face whatever lay beyond what awaited her in that light. Would she find Lily at last or lose everything? The Watcher loomed just outside, its silhouette sharp against the flickering light from within. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a drum echoing her terror. The figure didn't move, yet she felt its intent pressing in like a thick fog, refusing to let her breathe. Lily. The name escaped her lips again, a desperate prayer. She didn't know if her daughter was safe, if she had been taken, or worse. But all she could think about was reaching her. The shadows shifted and twisted behind the Watcher, as if they were alive, eager to reclaim her. The air smelled of damp earth and decay, the storm outside thrumming against the windows, a chaotic symphony in tune with her spiraling fear. Should she run? Beyond the door lay the unknown, but staying felt like inviting the darkness to swallow her whole. A drop of rain splattered against her cheek, snapping her back to reality. "Step outside," the watcher rasped, voice like gravel against glass, scraping at her nerves. "Join her or stay here and become one of us." An icy chill raced through her, paralyzing and familiar. It was the same sensation that had gripped her when she first descended into the basement. The choice before her twisted like barbed wire, each option sharp with consequences. "You're lying," she snarled, forcing her foot to edge back, ready to leap into the darkness outside. "You want me to stay in this nightmare?" Her breath fogged in the cool air, mixing with the storm's voice. She felt the pull of the shadows behind her. The dark things were restless, whispering promises of safety if she would only relinquish control. With one last deep breath, she hurled herself at the door, expecting to leap into freedom. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the Watcher's form blurred, and suddenly she was confronted by a world that felt wrong. The rain turned into sheets of glass, sharp and blinding. Instead of solid ground, she found herself standing in a disorienting landscape, an endless expanse of twisting hallways and doorways spilling into impossible spaces. "Mom!" Lily's voice echoed again, bouncing hauntingly off unseen walls. "Lily!" Panic bubbled inside Sarah, spurring her feet into action. She ran, her heart a wild drumbeat in her chest. "Where are you?" Each step was heavy, as though the ground was trying to cling to her. She turned corner after corner, but the echoes led her deeper into this labyrinth of dread. Shapes flickered at the edges of her vision, figures moving in the peripheral, a parade of torment that almost felt familiar yet grotesquely twisted, mocking her. "Look closer," a voice sang, almost sweet in its invitation, the echo crawling into her mind like ivy. "You might find her if you just look." But Sarah's instinct screamed at her. Fear clawed at her throat, the thought of what lay ahead suffocated her resolve. The Watcher could see her, its hollow gaze penetrating the shadows with ease. Lily's cries grew frantic, merging with the haunting song that twisted through the air. "Mom, please. Help me." Sarah pressed on, deeper into the maze. Desperation fogged her thoughts. The walls whispered her name, taunting her with secrets she didn't want to hear. Suddenly, a door appeared in front of her, solid and unyielding except it hummed with a strange energy, a heartbeat of its own. What lay beyond? Was it safety? Or doom? Time felt suspended as she reached for the knob, trembling fingers inching closer. Would this lead her to Lily, or would it tear her further into the darkness? "Open it!" the chorus of shadows urged. "Find out what awaits." Each second stretched painfully. With resolve igniting something deep inside, she twisted the knob and pushed the door ajar. The moment it creaked open, the air thickened. Sarah stepped through, heart racing toward whatever fate lay within. Was she ready for the truth? Could she handle whatever horror awaited her on the other side? As the door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate, a chilling realization washed over her. The stories weren't just about escape, they were about becoming part of the very nightmare she sought to escape. And there, deep within the shadows, she glimpsed a figure that looked hauntingly like herself. What had she truly released? What darkness had she stepped into? The air inside the room was unnaturally cold, like stepping into a tomb. Sarah's heart hammered as her surroundings settled into focus. The stale scent of dust and long-forgotten despair prickled her senses. A dim light flickered from the ceiling, casting unsettling shadows that danced over the cracked walls. "Lily!" she cried, desperation cracking her voice. No response came, just the persistent echo of her own fear. She turned to the wall, tracing her fingers over the peeling wallpaper. It was a grotesque mural, twisted faces buried within the art, mouths open in silent screams. "Where are you?" she whispered to the darkness, her gaze swept across the room. In the corner, an ancient mirror loomed. Its surface flickered with a deep, pulsing rhythm, unlike any reflection she had ever seen. It felt like a heartbeat, thrumming beneath her skin. "Mom," the voice was muffled, as though sunk under deep water, but it still sliced through the haze of her panic. Sarah rushed to the mirror, desperation clawing at her chest. As she got closer, the glass warped and twisted, moving like water. She leaned in, her breath fogging the surface. The image of Lily appeared, trapped behind an impossible barrier. Her daughter's face twisted in terror, eyes wide as they pooled with unshed tears. "Mom! Help!" The horror on her child's face etched itself into Sarah's mind. "No! I'll get you!" She pressed her palms against the cold surface, heart racing. The mirror began to ripple violently, reality blurring around the edges. Shadows danced around her, whispering cruel secrets. "Join us, she will be yours forever." Sarah shook her head, anger and fear blending into a single potent force. "Get away from her." She pulled away and stumbled back, her foot catching on something in the dimness. She fell hard, the floor solid but grimy, the weight of the shadows pressing down on her. As she scrambled back to her feet, something cold brushed against her ankle. Panic coursed through her. She darted a look down, heart stopping at the sight of twisted hands emerging from the floor, damp and covered with earth. The voices rose in a cacophony, filling her ears with dread. "Join us!" they screamed. "Embrace the darkness!" She turned, the mirror still beckoning her, her daughter's figure distorted as it twisted behind the glass. "Mommy, please!" The wail was laced with fear, a sound that splintered her resolve. "No!" Sarah shouted, fighting against the shadows, clawing her way back. She needed to find a way out. Searching the room, a door stood slightly ajar, faint light spilling in like hope. She lunged towards it, propelled by adrenaline and maternal instinct. As she reached for the door, it swung open, revealing a sickeningly familiar hallway, the same twisted path she had been navigating before. An overwhelming sense of dread flooded her. "Join us!" the shadows seemed to echo, wrapping around her legs, dragging her down. Just then, a shriek burst forth from the mirror, louder than before. The glass shattered into a million pieces, each fragment reflecting a haunting vision of Lily's terrified face. For the briefest moment, Sarah glimpsed something darker behind her daughter. It was the Watcher, its gaze fixed on her, a cruel smile stretching across its grotesque face. "No!" Sarah screamed, the sound rippling through the air, a desperate plea. She had to get to Lily, had to free her. With a fierce determination, she pushed through the door, stepping back into the hallway. But at the edge of her vision, she saw the dark shadows writhing, closing in like a miasma, ready to engulf her whole. "Mom, help me!" The voice echoed again, but it no longer felt far away, it felt as if it was right inside her mind. The walls began to close in as despair seeped deeper into her bones. What would she find if she followed the cries? What more of herself would she have to sacrifice? Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a chime echoing through the silence. Shadows coalesced, creating a path she was almost hesitant to follow. The Watcher was waiting. And Sarah realized she had only just begun to unravel the true horror of her own reflection. What would she discover, or lose, in this twisted game of shadows? Sarah pressed onward, her breath coming in short gasps. The hallway stretched before her, dark and foreboding. Each step felt heavy, as if the darkness itself was trying to hold her back, to swallow her whole. Shadows skittered along the walls, whispering her name, wrapping around her like chains. "Lily!" She called again, the name reverberating through the cold emptiness. The response was silence, thick and suffocating. Each beat of her heart pounded in her ears, urging her forward, somehow both a warning and a promise. As she moved, she caught glimpses of the doors lining the hallway. Each one was different. Some were rotting, with cracked wood that oozed moisture, while others appeared pristine but had an unnatural stillness about them. A swirl of fear twisted in her gut. What lay behind those doors? Mom! Please! The cry was frantic, piercing through the heavy air. It drew Sarah's focus, igniting a desperate fire in her chest. She ran toward the sound, ignoring the shadowy figures that clawed at her silhouette. Suddenly, a door swung open on its own, revealing nothing but absolute darkness. The yawning blackness beckoned her, promising answers she feared but needed. This way a voice echoed, smooth and sinister, more enticing than the cries for help. Gritting her teeth, Sarah hesitated, then stepped through the threshold. Instantly, she was engulfed in an icy void, her skin prickling. The door slammed shut behind her with a deafening bang, trapping her in a world that felt like the inside of a coffin. Lily! She shouted again, panic clawing at her throat. The darkness thickened, swirling around her. Wisps floated just out of reach, almost tangible, whispering, "Join us." Each word sent a chill racing through her spine. Shadows pressed closer, like hands ready to pull her under. "Get away! You don't control me!" she screamed. She fought against the encroaching darkness, backing against the cold and damp wall of whatever this was. The space seemed alive, pulsating as if the shadows had a will of their own. Then, a light flickered to life in the distance. A soft glow, pulsing like a heartbeat. Hope raced through her, pushing the fear aside, if only for a moment. She sprinted toward it, her body desperate for something real, something warm. As she approached, she realized it came from a small, cracked mirror sitting on a pedestal. She could see her reflection disheveled, wild-eyed, but something else was there, too. Behind her was the Watcher, its smile wider and more malevolent than before. "Sarah, you've come so far, you're almost mine." The air grew thick, a heavy fog enveloping her. The mirror warped, distorting her features, twisting them into the dark silhouettes of those lost to the shadows. Each visage spoke in unison, their voices overlapping like an unholy chorus of despair. Join us, no." She could barely breathe. Terror flooded her veins. She felt the cool grasp of hands reach for her neck, fingers icy and clammy. They pulled her back, but she wrenched away and stumbled. Rushing forward, she threw herself toward the pulsing light, arms outstretched. With a sudden burst, the light enveloped her, blinding and all-consuming. And then everything went dark, the stillness was deafening. Sarah's heart thudded, echoing in the silence. Had she reached the end, or was this merely another trick? "Mom! Help me!" The call echoed once more, returning to her like a cruel taunt. She shook her head violently, willing herself to see, to feel. But all she had was the faint memory of her daughter's face, a lifeline snatched away from her. Panic clawed at her chest. "Wake up!" she screamed, voice cracking. "You have to wake up." But was she awake, or was this another layer of the nightmare? A flicker of doubt seeped in. Was she even in the right place? Did she want to know the truth? Just then, a chilling laugh erupted from the shadows. "You're already one of us, no escape." Cold dread washed over her as she realized the impossibility of her situation and the terrible cost of searching for Lily. Sarah took a deep breath, flipping her panic into determination. The darkness challenged her, but she wouldn't surrender that easily. And yet, the walls quivered around her, as if closing in for the final act. What lay ahead? Another choice, another sacrifice, or perhaps, the end? The Watcher waited, hungry for her next move. A cold breeze whispered past Sarah, cutting through the thick darkness that clung to her like a shroud. She stood in stillness, straining to hear something, anything that might guide her. The laughter echoed again, wrapping around her mind, mixing with memories of laughter long lost. "Breathe, Sarah," she whispered to herself, as if the simple command could pull her from the edge of panic. Each breath felt like a battle against the intoxicating fear that threatened to overtake her. If she could just tune out the shadows, find a door, anything that would lead her out, she stumbled forward, her hands brushing against the walls. They were slick and cold, almost alive, pulsating as if breathing in sync with her fears. The air grew heavier, a weight pressing down on her chest, making it difficult to think. "Mom, where are you?" The gentle, pleading tone of her daughter's voice pierced through the silence again, this time from her left. It was dulcet, almost soothing, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. But deep down, she knew better. It was a trick, a cruel mockery. Still, she couldn't resist following it. As she navigated blindly, she felt, despite herself, the shadows shift. They danced in her periphery, whispering secrets that sent flashes of dread coursing through her. Each shadow seemed to flicker with the faces of the lost that haunted this place, their expressions twisting in agony. "Seeking something?" one shadow hissed. The voice was familiar, beckoning. Terror swept through her belly like a tidal wave. "Leave me alone!" she shouted, a spine-jarring echo of futility. Silent walls laughed. But she refused to succumb. Clenching her fists, she pushed onward, driven by the memory of Lily. If she could just reach her, she wouldn't care how deep into hell she had to go. Then, abruptly, the whispers stopped. The oppressive atmosphere shifted. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Sarah hesitated, breathless, scanning her surroundings. Had she crossed into another realm? A flicker of dim light ahead caught her eye then, beckoning from beyond a door at the end of the corridor. Desperation clawed at her as she sprinted, adrenaline ripping through her veins. The door seemed more solid than the others, its wood there as if anchored in reality. "Lily!" she shouted, banging against the door with urgency. It shuddered but remained stubbornly closed. "Mom!" Another call, right on the other side, filled with childhood innocence. "Hang on, baby!" she cried, slamming her shoulder against the barrier. The door creaked in protest, faint but promising. She slammed it again, willing it to yield. As the wood split and groaned, the air shimmered. Sudden warmth seeped through the cracks. With one last desperate effort, she threw herself against it. The door burst open. Light flooded into the corridor, enveloping her. But the light wasn't warm, it was blinding, paralyzing. It felt like every hope she ever had was crushed and replaced with an end she dared not face. Inside, she could see forms moving, silhouettes of those who had been trapped in the shadows, lost souls with outstretched arms beckoning her. "Join us," they chorused, their voices a bomb that burned. She hesitated at the threshold, caught between stepping into the light and retreating back into the darkness. Behind her, shadows swarmed, whispering her name in 1,000 painful whispers. Then she heard it, a scream, raw and desperate, fought to escape her lips. It wasn't her own voice. It was Lily's. The very thought ignited a flame within her. "No! I want to let you take her." With renewed fury, Sarah leaped forward, biting back her fear. The screams intensified, voices swirling around her mind, but she pushed through, determined to hold on to the belief that she could save her daughter. As the figures rushed toward her, she lunged into the light, a single thought blaring in her mind: save her. But the light engulfed her, freezing her breath in her throat. The shadows closed tighter around her, howling like a storm. What awaited her? An embrace of despair or the bittersweet promise of salvation? In that moment, her vision blurred, and she wondered if she'd made the ultimate mistake. But before she could grasp the truth of her choice, a voice thundered from beyond the light, laden with power. Your fate has only just begun. Could she change her destiny, or was she bound to meet a darkness deeper than she ever feared? A scream pierced through the heavy haze of light as Sarah fought against the field of shadows pressing in. She felt hands grapple at her, pulling her back, but she fought hard, clawing her way toward the echo of her daughter's voice. "Lily!" she shrieked, slicing through the darkness and into the light. But the light felt wrong. It didn't offer safety, it sucked the warmth from her, leaving her chilled to the bone. She couldn't see Lily, only those grasping figures with hollow eyes and twisted smiles, closing in on her like an inevitable tide, hungry for her soul. "Help me. Please." She begged, desperation bubbling in her throat. "Mom," the voice morphed, twisted by the voices around her. "Join us." With every desperate heartbeat, shadows clawed at her feet, urging her to succumb. Yet in that chaos, there was a flicker of hope. Light split the air, revealing the ghostly outline of her daughter just beyond the reach of those lost souls. Lily stood in a glimmering sea that fanned out in rays, eyes wide and filled with tears. "Mom! Don't listen to them. I'm right here." Sarah's heart thundered. The shadows recoiled, and with a fierce push, she surged forward toward the light. "Stay away!" she howled at the drifting specters. A wave of energy surged from her, a mother's fierce love. The air exploded with whispers turned to shrieks, rage mixing with her resolve, but just as she felt her fingertips brush against the edge of the light, something icy wrapped around her ankle tight as a vice. She stumbled, falling to her knees. The world spun, visions of her daughter melded into the faces of suffering souls who yearned for release. No! The bitter realization clawed at her mind. They wanted her. They wanted her to forsake her daughter. "Mom!" The cry wrenched her heart. With every ounce of strength, Sarah battled against gravity, against despair. She screamed, a raw sound saturated with primal fear. She wasn't ready to join them. Not now. As the shadows laughed, she pulled with desperation, pushing through the dark. Each movement felt like dragging stone against bone. But the warmth of the light called to her, a mother's instinct refusing to be extinguished. The ghoulish faces grew frenzied, their mouths twisted in ghastly smiles. "You cannot escape," they shouted. "You belong here. I won't give in." Her voice rose above their chants, carving a path through the noise until she burst through the border of light, and just like that, she was in. Overwhelming silence enveloped her, but it was different this time. She looked around. The light had transformed into a strange, shimmering realm, full of vibrant colors yet suffused with a malevolence that sent chills racing down her spine. "Lily!" she called again, her voice reverberating through the air. She spun, searching for her daughter amid iridescent landscapes. But all around her, the shadows thudded at the edges, watching, waiting. She felt eyes on her, and panic clawed again at her chest. Where was Lily? Had she left her behind? Then, a cold whisper reached her ear, slithering like a serpent. "You're trapped now, lost forever." Like the rest they were everywhere, the shades of those who had come before her, their hopes extinguished, their dreams twisted into despair. Was there no escape? Mom! A glimmer flared from the shadows, a flicker of Lily just beyond an archway. "Hold on." Sarah sprinted forward, a burst of reckless energy pushing her feet beyond pain, but darkness swirled, tendrils shooting out like snakes to ensnare her. "No!" she shouted, fighting, clawing her way past the grasping hands. The archway grew dim, melting further with each step. This was her last chance. She lunged toward it, praying for her daughter, praying for a way out. Then she reached the archway. Just as she thought she might slip through, a deafening roar filled the air. "Your fate has only just begun." The shadows writhed and pulsed, revealing a terrifying truth about the realm she had entered. Darkness swallowed the vibrant colors, limbo becoming a nightmare landscape. The air shimmered, warped by anger and despair, and in the heart of it all, a new challenge began to brew. Were her and Lily's fates intertwined in this sinister dimension, or would one be sacrificed for the sake of the other? The shadows whispered again, "You will find out soon enough." The heavy darkness swirled around Sarah like a suffocating mist, shrouding her thoughts and threatening to crush her spirit. Heart racing, she clenched her fists, driven by the cry of her daughter, now burned into her mind like a flame refusing to die. "Lily!" She called, voice trembling with fear yet ringing with fierce determination. I'm coming. With every step through this nightmarish landscape, shadows danced around her, whispering promises of despair, tugging at her like the cold grips of the lost souls she had glimpsed earlier. She breathed deeply, shoving the creeping panic back down. She would not let them win. A flicker of light caught her eye, drawing her away from the morbid whispers that clawed at her sanity. It pulsed gently in the distance, a beacon against the encroaching dark. She sprinted toward it, desperation surging through her veins. Closer they murmured, their voices merging into a seductive whisper, attempting to lull her into submission. Her feet moved faster, driven by the haunting echo of Lily's cries, urging her forward. As she reached the light, a doorway appeared before her, glowing with an ethereal warmth, reminding her of the countless nights they spent together under the stars. She reached out instinctively, gasping for hope, for anything that would guide her back to her daughter. And then, out of nowhere, the shadows coalesced into a cacophony of twisted faces, their mouths open in silent screams, terror reflected in their hollow eyes. You cannot escape. Their chorus clawed at her mind, trying to wrench her from her purpose. I won't give up on her. Sarah roared, the battle within her surging to the forefront. The specters screeched back, flailing angrily, their forms shrinking against the force of her resolve. She pressed through, heart pounding, eyes locked on the glowing archway. As she dashed inside, she was met with brilliant light. Her surroundings shifted and spun, colors melding into one another. A moment of realization struck her, the realm she entered felt alive, breathing, vibrating with a terrifying energy. It filled her with dread and undeniable courage alike. Before her, the figures of the lost souls coalesced once more, a sea of despair, pulsating with longing. Join us. They reached out with skeletal fingers, their faces hauntingly familiar, begging for release. No. I won't be like you. She shouted firmly, her voice louder than the darkness. With every ounce of her being, she pushed forward into the radiant expanse. There, flaring against the shadows, stood Lily, ghostly yet vibrant, her eyes bright with fear yet filled with a profound love. Mom! Lily cried, reaching out. Pure instinct propelled Sarah forward, her heart racing toward the source of comfort she thought she had lost, but just as she thought she could grasp her daughter, the ground beneath them trembled. The shadows spiraled closer, quaking with rage as the archway faded behind them, illuminating the truth. With mounting terror, Sarah realized that the shadows weren't just an enemy, they were part of her, spun from her deepest fears. All the lost, just like you. One shadow hissed, lunging at Sarah, clinging desperately to her like a child reaching for comfort. No! Sarah shouted, shaking her free. You don't own me. The light surrounding her surged, rallying around her spirit, refusing to succumb to despair. With one last desperate push, Sarah lunged toward her daughter, extending her arms wide. Together. We can break free. But as she reached, a wave of shadows converged upon her, wrapping around her body, creeping up her legs, and tightening around her throat. The cacophony crescendoed, voices rising in a haunting symphony of despair. Join us, be one with the dark, they howled, trying to drown her resolve, but Sarah fought against them incessantly. Through the noise, Lily's voice broke through like a ray of light. Mom! I believe in you. With a newfound strength coursing through her, Sarah screamed, we will not be taken. This is our fight. Drawing upon the love she bore for her daughter, she felt a warm glow rising. Within her a powerful light bursting forth, illuminating the shadows that had once held sway over her. The shadows writhed and shifted, shrieking as their form began to dissipate, pulled into the brilliance blazing from Sarah's heart. As the cacophony died down, the shadows shattered like glass, fading into oblivion, warmth cascading around them. In the aftermath, Sarah and Lily stood alone, the blinding light fading into a serene luminescence. Relief washed over Sarah as she clutched Lily close, warmth enveloping her as tears streamed down her cheeks. She realized what it truly meant to escape. They had faced the darkness together, defied its pull, and emerged whole. "Let us go home," she whispered, as they stepped through the now open doorway, each heartbeat carrying them further away from the haunting realms of despair. It was there, walking hand in hand with her daughter under the soft, calming rain, that Sarah realized they hadn't just escaped, they had reclaimed their lives, renewed by the bond of love, the purest force of all. "Remember, my love," she said softly, her heart filled with an unquenchable light. "We are never truly alone." And as they stepped back into the world they had so desperately fought to preserve, the storm outside began to fade, leaving behind a quiet calm, honoring the bravery of a mother's love. "Now, if you made it this far, I need you to do something important. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of our exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm, truly it makes a world of difference. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. You never know who might need to see this conclusion. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be part of our story family. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.